Welcome everybody. Welcome. I'm your boy Big Rich, aka Richard McDaniel.
This is Kevin Harris. I don't have an AKA. I'm not
Kev.
Kev. I guess so. Sure.
Yeah, we
Let's
talk
go with that. Okay.
Kev.
All right.
But we're kicking things off as our inaugural episode for, you know, Maroon Bison presents the Southern Comfort Podcast.
That's right.
It's been a long time coming.
It's been a long time coming, and I think what we will do throughout this podcast is funny. Is a lot of just phone conversations that we have.
Yeah.
Basically, we're letting the world into stuff that we talk about pretty much every morning.
Yeah.
Recapping the news and the day, observations about things. So I think it'll be a very cool experience for people to kind of learn some more about us and get some of this wisdom and knowledge, because people are always calling us and asking us for our thoughts on things and reactions to the world. So this is the opportunity.
So we've been friends for going on 10 years.
Yeah, so a funny thing about politics is you forget why you know people.
Yeah.
You just know that you know them and you've known them for a long time. So I don't really know why I know you or how I know you. I think it started around the Clinton campaign. So that was 8 years ago.
It was going into 16.
Yes.
I was in New York for her primary races.
Right.
I was Southern Regional Director.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting ready to transition and move back to Georgia and
Mm-hmm.
run things in Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You were getting ready to basically step into the similar role that I was in.
Mm-hmm. For the general.
Yeah. But I think either Troy or Brian introduced us. It might have been Brian.
I think it was Brian, our friend Brian Alexander, who knows everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of overlap in DC because I was getting ready to move to Brooklyn. I had just done my last job.
And we grabbed lunch at a bar.
Yes, and I had done my last job in the Obama administration.
Yeah.
And I was talking to you about the campaign because up until that point, I had just been a little bit of an outside advisor while I finished my administration work. And I was going for the general election because I just didn't have it in me to do like a whole year and a half.
Yeah. Listen, it's a drag. But what people don't know, and, on these campaigns, black people tend to stick together. It's just like high school.
Yes.
Just like college.
Yes.
And so you want to get the download and the skinny about how should I operate?
Yes.
What am I walking into?
Exactly.
What's not being told? Because you're sold one thing, they get you to take the job.
Yes.
But when you actually get in the role
Mm-hmm.
and you pop the hood, you see that,
Mm-hmm.
everything that shine ain't the finest, right? So
No, and it's a constant struggle that never goes away, because if you are an operative, especially a black operative, your outreach in politics, especially African American politics, how the campaign engages the African American community, is going to always be a part of your portfolio. You can't not have it.
Yeah.
You'll have other responsibilities, but it's going to be other responsibilities and also black people, right?
Right.
And so one of the conversations you always have is you try to talk to the folks that are there or around the campaign to understand, like, how serious are they about investing in black community. What are the resources going to look like? And a lot of times, people will be surprised, right? Like I can tell, and this is something I'm sure we'll get into later, but a lot of times people will assume, like, oh, well, the candidate is black, right? So there's going to be resources there. Not necessarily.
Again, it's something we will get into. I get into as you guys listen to this podcast. But this is one of the reasons why we decided to do this podcast, right? Right.
Yep.
It is. We are two Southern boys.
Yes, Mama's boys.
Mama's boys, definitely. You are
Proud
from
Mama's boys. Birmingham, Alabama. I was born in Atlanta, but
what hospital?
Forget.
It's either Grady, Northside, Crawford Long, or Atlanta Medical, or Atlanta Georgia Baptist.
I think it might have been Atlanta Medical.
So is it, if it was Atlanta Medical, it's the one that was off Boulevard.
Yeah.
So that might be you know this. That's the hospital that King was born at.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, they just closed it, but that's the hospital that King was born at.
I did not know that, but that's where I was born, and then my mom moved to Birmingham, where she was from, and that's really where I grew up. And she moved there for childcare, because my grandma was retired and could kind of help take care of me. So I ended up being very much a mama's boy, a grandmama's boy, and I was that grandbaby that was in the house. And everybody knows, if you ever been in that situation, the grandbaby that's like in the house, you're the favorite. You get more stuff than the other stuff. So I hold that over my cousins all the time.
So I, from Atlanta, Grady Hospital. Those who don't know, is actually the only trauma unit that is in the city of Atlanta. And politics and policies is something we talk about there. But I'm a mama's boy, and I'm the baby. So that plays into a whole different story. Right? My two older sisters are 14 and 12 years older. My brother, who just passed away, 2 years ago, we were just 3 years apart. So, I'm looked at as, that little specialty golden child who got away with stuff, but I really didn't get away with it. My brother got away with it. But anyway, but the reason why we did this podcast is because as two black male operatives who've been in the game for a while, we've seen lots of things. We've experienced many things, but we've always advocated for the South. Yes. And whenever we do on a national level, and when we deal with Southern candidates, right? Yes. We know, you and I know, that if you can do well and organize the South, you change the landscape of national politics, both on a local level and on a national level. So.
You absolutely do. And I always say, people say, why'd you get into this line of work? And I always say, I see it as a form of public service. And like we've seen it, right? We've been on the campaign side, we've been on the other side, and so we know that literally whoever it is sitting in that seat, a lot of times that makes the decision that impacts so many people's lives, and you want it to be a good person, a person that genuinely cares about the community and about people, specifically black people. And I always say too, I'm not a community of color person. I ask very specific questions. When I don't want to talk about communities, I want to talk specifically about black people. What are you going to do? How are we helping to uplift and support black people?
Well, coming from Birmingham, which is what is right now, I think it's 65, almost 70% black still. What's the city population? 200, 300,000 maybe?
Yeah, and it just got eclipsed, so it's not even the largest city in Alabama anymore. Huntsville is.
Huntsville, okay. And then me coming from Atlanta, let's kind of talk about that a little bit, right? Birmingham and Atlanta are very similar. Atlanta isn't as heavy on the African American population as Birmingham. But when we talk about black leadership, both cities have had a long-standing black leadership. But Atlanta has benefited from business. More than Birmingham has, and I think Birmingham now, with the mayor they have, my good brother and your good brother, my Morehouse brother, Mayor Randall Woodfin. Shout out Rand. Hopefully we can get you on the show, Mayor. Hopefully we will get you on the show.
We will.
Hopefully
he'll do it.
He is definitely cleaning up a lot of Birmingham, but also bringing in new business. Right. And I think when you look at Atlanta benefited from lots of things, but I think they kind of stole the limelight from Birmingham. Because of Delta Airlines. Right? And I think I told you this the other night, right? The airport. Delta had to choose between Birmingham, Atlanta, or go back to where it was founded, which is Macon, Georgia, and they chose Atlanta because, some deals and some policies were made that would benefit Delta, and they didn't choose Birmingham because the leadership basically was like, "Nah, we don't want you." Right?
Yeah.
So Birmingham could have easily been Atlanta.
Yeah.
Easily.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. With the right investments, and like you mentioned the airport, that's a good example of like what we were just talking about how the people that are in those positions and having folks that have a genuine concern about the condition of black people in those positions makes a difference, right? Like everybody has heard the legendary stories about Maynard Jackson and the airport and how he was insistent that African American contractors not be excluded from that. There were businesses that were born and sustained. There were people who had nice middle class, upper middle class lifestyle because they had a mayor who dared to care and say, we're not going to build this in Atlanta and exclude these people and exclude black folks specifically. And that set the stage for I don't know that it's necessarily true to set the stage, but it's an example of some of the formative years of how I came to know and think of Atlanta as literally this place. I always say the thing I love about Atlanta is it's a place in the South, and really Georgia. It's a place in the South where you don't have to move away from your own to be successful, to have nice things, right? You don't you can still go get the nice house and the nice car and everything else, and you don't have to move to the suburbs and away from people that look like you. There are wonderful communities all throughout Atlanta, and you can all your neighbors are black, and the story of just the economics and the politics and how interwoven that is, it really does help Atlanta and Georgia really stand out from the South. We never quite got that together in Alabama, and you can really see that in the progression of the two cities, Birmingham and Atlanta. Things like the lottery, right? Y'all got the lottery. Y'all school system is better for it. I got family members. If they find out you in Atlanta, they ask you to bring them some lotto tickets back because they can't play in Alabama, and so one of the things, we'll talk about this, I know, in future episodes, but that was one of those special, I guess, convergence moments for us, was being able to be a part of Randall's campaigns and what he represents and the change that he's ushered in Birmingham to really kind of put us more on a level within Atlanta, because growing up, I felt like we were just like the step kid, right? You go to Atlanta when you want to go to the big city, when you want to go to a place. You didn't feel like you lived in a big city necessarily.
Yeah. And, that's interesting. Like, when you think about all of that, right? I grew up in a time where Atlanta where I saw and benefited from Delta Airlines. And you mentioned Maynard Jackson, Mayor Maynard Jackson, and what he was able to provide. And it was basically 30% of contracts had to go to minority business owners. They're off top, understood. That's what it is. And so, that brought on people like H.J. Russell, Herman J. Russell,
That's right.
Who was a great visionary black developer who, helped build many great things in the city of Atlanta, not just dealing with the Hartsville Airport, but he had dealings with the Georgia Dome, which was where the Falcons played, which, he built many of the businesses downtown, right? All across. He has a footprint all across the city of Atlanta. And now his children are taking it over. But then you also talk about 1996 and
the Olympics.
The Olympics, right? Again, bringing it to a city where I think we did it pretty well. We expanded, but we didn't pretty much expand in the right way. But we still benefited from that, and that's where you see a kind of the uptick in the Hispanic population here in Atlanta because of and that's where the Metro Atlanta area, like when we talk about Atlanta and the Metro growth, I don't know, it would be interesting to see what it is for Birmingham and Metro Birmingham, but the state of Georgia is roughly 10 10 and a half, maybe almost 11 million.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Half of that is in the metro Atlanta area,
Yeah.
which they now say is 20 counties. But
Yeah. Yep.
you're looking at 5.5
Million
million
people.
in the metro Atlanta area.
Yep. Yep.
Atlanta, I think, is roughly around 500, 600,000.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sitting in on a debrief with the Atlanta police and
Mm-hmm.
some others, and they say 1.2 million people travel into Atlanta for work every day, Monday through Friday.
Jesus. Yeah.
And that's not to mention who's coming in for conventions or right, or just for random travel, or everyday life. So it's interesting to see what could have been the tale of two cities. And I think Randall is doing great things. He just announced, I think, that he's running again for mayor.
He is, yeah. He's gonna do another term.
Yeah. I think he still thinks he has things left.
Yeah.
And he'll come talk about it when he's on the show. I'm looking at this microphone like it's a camera. Mayor Randall, 1, 2, 3, we're looking. Bruh, we're going to get you on the show. Quick, fast, and hurry.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So that's that. But, we've covered the fact that we're from the South. We covered the fact that we do consider ourselves mama's boys. And we'll talk about, on this show, we'll talk about our relationships with our mother. You heard me?
Yeah.
In the car with my mom.
Yeah, that sounds like a very familiar conversation with my mother. It usually starts off talking to her about something she was supposed to do and didn't do. Like, were you gonna tell me you got home? Were you gonna tell me it's and it's just interesting part of life. Because the roles kind of change. It's almost like the kids become the parents, and you calling and checking in on them, and like, did you eat today? Do you need me to bring you food today?
Yeah.
What did you eat today? You have to eat better than that.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm gonna bring you something else. Like, it's interesting, and it don't seem like it's like a lead into it too. It sounds like it just like it just changes one day.
She made some pig ear soup the other day.
Pig-eared soup.
Pig-eared soup. I had never fucking heard of pig-eared soup, first of all.
In Georgia, y'all supposed to be more sophisticated than us Alabama folks.
Supposed to be.
But I don't even think in Alabama they put the pig ear in soup.
My mama is from a place called Sonoy.
Sonoy.
That's how we say it, Sonoy.
And
it's Sonoya.
And where is that in Georgia?
It's actually, I would say, right next to Peachtree City, so maybe 45 minutes, almost an hour, south in Coweta, Coweta, C-O-W-E-T-A, Coweta.
Uh-huh.
And we always say, hey, you ever seen a Coweta girl?
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
And did y'all go back there growing up?
All the time.
All the time. So you still have cousins and stuff there?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, so ironically enough, me and my brother, we would have to go work our great-grandfather's farm down in Sonoy on the weekends. So while, a lot of times, a lot of my friends they, on the field hitting, you know what I'm saying? We were tossing hay bales to feed the cows and slop to feed the pigs.
Wow.
And, yeah.
Wow.
Waking up at 5. Yeah, so, I was a city boy that, had to do, rural things.
Country stuff.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like my dad was a sort of like a jack of all trades, handyman type people. So, he was known for painting houses and, pressure washing houses, and that's what we were doing.
Yep.
Pressure washing, scraping,
Doing the work. Yep.
Doing work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like y'all working on the weekends.
Yeah.
Y'all ain't got time to do that.
Yeah, there's no break.
No.
No. You go to work.
So those are just some of the things we got in common. You, on the other hand, didn't have to do any manual labor, sort
of. Not really. I was spoiled in that way. I had to work. I always had jobs. I had to clean up in the house, but most of my childhood was helping to be a caregiver to my grandmother, because remember I told you I moved back there to so she could help my mother with childcare.
Yeah.
And then she develops Alzheimer's, and so probably around like 11 or 12 I was helping to be a caregiver for her. So that kind of became like my chores and stuff,
Having
but
to grow
like
up fast.
a lot of the traditional stuff, like we helping her, medications, get to the doctor, feeding, all that stuff. But a lot of the traditional, stuff, I kind of got to skip that, right? Like I didn't cut grass. To this day, I've never cut grass. I've never. I think I could do it, but I've never cut grass. My house now, there's a landscaper. I don't even cut my own grass. I've never done it. I can't fix anything. I'm not handy at all. My wife is far more handy than I am. And I can't cook. I've been fortunate enough at every stage of life. There's always been some wonderful woman in my life who just took pity on me and fed me food. So it was my mom and my grandma growing up. In college, it was Miss Parker, because I was renting. So the only way I could afford to go to Howard, I couldn't live on campus. And so there was a very cheap basement apartment that I was able to rent from Miss Parker and her son. And so Miss Parker would cook for me while I was in college.
Miss Parker.
And then I had girlfriends that would cook for me, and then my wife is a wonderful chef. So I never cracked an egg for myself until I was in my 20s.
He's not joking. The boy can't boil water.
I would mess it up.
Yeah.
So that's for sure. But I do want to say, like, one thing, just kind of, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but like when you was talking about Maynard Jackson and what he did and his insistence that 30% of those contracts, I can't help but wonder two things. One, right, what would he say today since we getting rid of DEI in the government? And also, are we gonna see that same kind of courage and insistence from leadership today? Because you got all kinds of orders coming out of the White House now that are impacting these cities that have black leadership. And are we gonna see a Maynard Jackson type emerge to be that savvy? Because look at the benefits of it. I mean, he helped set the stage and the path, man, for a generation of black folks.
To answer your last question, will we ever see a Maynard Jackson again? I think that's Randall.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is Randall.
Yeah.
And what would he say today? Well, if Maynard was still living today, I don't think we would have this problem. I just think that because of him, his size, his stature, when he speak, the brevity of how he said things, the way he influenced and was able to get the masses to go along with him, I don't think a person like Donald Trump would exist. We probably would have had a black president way before President Obama. We probably would be on, a woman president right now, maybe the second one, right? Like, I think that's what Maynard offered, right? And you all who are listening, right? Like Maynard Holbrook Jackson, a Morehouse man, I might add.
Oh my Lord!
I
love it.
He did 3 terms as mayor here.
Yep.
He did 2, left, and then came back. That just showed his popularity, likability, and his ability to get things done, and bring people to the table, both Democrat and Republican. Like when you're in Atlanta and you are in that office, in that seat, you're a mayor for all.
Yep.
And I think that's something understood. And no shot at the mayors that we've had since him, but they've kind of always talk about walking in his footsteps and never truly have paved their own footsteps for others to walk in. And so I don't think he would, I think, he ran for DNC chair, lost.
Mm-hmm.
That was during the Clinton era.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he would have heavily swayed and pulled and ensured that when campaigns are doing things, there's 30%
Yeah.
leadership at the
Yeah.
table helping make decisions.
Yep. Yep.
And I think it would just be a different story.
Yep.
I don't think we would have the pitiful excuse of a campaign that ran for Kamala, even for President Biden. I think that campaign.
Which one?
The first one.
First one. Well, the 2020?
2020.
Uh-huh.
There was COVID, but I still think that there were things, that they benefited from Trump being in office, and nobody really just wanted Trump. People held their noses to vote for Biden.
Sure. Yeah.
But he still accomplished great things.
He did.
And I
did
think
tremendous things.
I think he was forced to do that because he wanted one, a legacy, but two, he really had no choice.
I think I think that's absolutely right. But one thing I do want to say, I absolutely agree with you about Randall. You do see that leadership amongst a lot of black mayors, and they're young.
Yeah.
Right. That excites me as well. I think Randall's 40, 41, 42.
Randall, if I'm about to turn 40, I think Randall may be 42.
42. Okay, and then another one that people don't think of Maryland as the South, but it is. It is.
Whatever.
It is. It's the South. And another person I would put on that list is Mayor Scott.
Out of Baltimore.
And yes, another person that we've gotten to do work for, who I got real close with when I was in the mayor's office in Baltimore. He was a city councilman, so he's been a friend and client for years now. And I don't know if you caught him his press conference the other day. They were asking him about all of the deportation executive orders that were coming out of the White House, and he answered that question with a boldness and a clarity that I think excites people, but with courage that we don't often see today. And he said something along the lines of like, well, you can't deport my people. We've been here 400 years. This is the same guy when we were dealing with the bridge that collapsed in Baltimore, and they were calling him a DEI mayor and stuff like that. And he said they only call me that because they just don't have the balls to call me the N-word. So that's what they do. And he says this like on national TV, but he speaks in a way, he and Randall speak in a way with a boldness and a clarity that is needed. And to me, they are another example of where people should look to the South, and a lot of times for leadership. They're still grappling with who's going to be our next DNC chair, and where everything that went wrong in the last election and our messaging and stuff like that. They don't oftentimes think about the South and centering us in those conversations. But we have leaders down here like Randall and Brandon, I would still consider that the South, who actually do understand these things and should be listened to, not just in terms of their ideas, their thoughts, and their accomplishments and their records, but how they talk about it.
Yeah. That's interesting, right? And when I think about Randall, I think about Brandon Scott.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder, on a national level, how are they viewed?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Did Biden lean towards them or talk to them, or did he seek, advisement from them? Maybe, but probably not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't see Randall on the campaign trail. I didn't hear about him being on the campaign trail. And I don't know if that's really what he wants to do, but I don't think anybody ever asked him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? I first actually met Randall when I asked him to be my Alabama state director for Hillary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They wanted, it's funny enough, they wanted Mayor William Bell to be that person. And Mayor William Bell is the guy the incumbent that Randall ended up beating in a runoff, right?
Yep.
So they wanted Mayor William Bell. I was like, no, we need somebody younger.
Yeah.
At the time, Randall was school board member.
Yeah. Might have been the president. Was he the president?
It
of
might have been the
school board?
president,
Yeah.
but he was also a city attorney.
Yep.
And so I called Randall just talking to him. Didn't even think to ask him for it, and then I was just like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I called William Bell and said, hey, I'm looking at, Randall to be the state director.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't say anything bad about Randall because he knew this was Secretary Clinton calling. And So, and I think there was just a fight. There was that fight in the city council where one city council member told Mayor Bell, don't let this suit fool you. I'll kick your ass. Do you remember that?
I do.
Man, so they got to tussling.
I do. Mm-hmm.
And so that worked out great for me. It's like, oh, we can't have these two.
Yeah.
They're fighting in the press.
Has to be Randall.
So it has to be Randall.
Yeah.
Right? I jumped on that opportunity.
Yeah, I do. I remember that.
Yeah. So, on a national level, are they looked at, right? And Brandon, right in the back door.
Yeah.
In Baltimore. Right?
Yeah.
And they failed.
Yeah.
I think he would have been great down here. I think he would have been great on the trail.
Yeah. He did do some stops. I'm not sure about Randall, but Brandon definitely did some stops. But that campaign this last time, I mean, I think there were definitely some challenges on our end, and what you saw was what I say, that like the chickens come home to roost. We have been talking about for years that that we had problems with what is considered our base, with black men in particular, and really just Latino men, people of color. But what it really is, though, is we have problems with working class voters.
Yep.
And the Democratic Party's problem, one of them is, number one, our thinking is too limited about what the middle class is right now.
What it looks like.
When you right now, if you ask a Democratic strategist or you see a Democratic campaign and we need to go talk to working class voters, they're going to send them to Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin. They're going to put them in a factory with white people, and this is the working class. Yeah. And so the black people in Detroit that work aren't working class. You have factories and plants down here in Georgia that have that too. So they don't understand the diversity of the middle class. In addition to that, I don't think they have a good sense of. We act as though anybody that makes over $100,000. You're good, you got it, and that's just not the economic reality of where folks are. So we got to diversify in terms of the dollar amount of what it actually costs to be middle class. Right. You'd be shocked. There are people who make $200,000-$300,000 a year but don't feel middle class at all. I mean, you got a kid in college, a house, a car for you and your wife. I mean, you're trying to put a little bit away for retirement and stuff like that. That $200,000, it don't go as far as it used to go, and we seem to not get that as a party. And we also got to understand too that when it comes to, and we talk about this all the time, when it comes to black people, black men in particular, we have never really had a message for upwardly mobile black people. Right. The Democratic Party, to the extent they will talk to you in a targeted way, is only lower income black people. They don't know how to talk to you if you have been able to do a little bit better, right? Yeah. And so I say this to you all the time, just my personal feelings, and I've talked to a lot of black men who are in the same position, where you feel like you're too rich for the Democrats but too poor for the Republicans.
Yeah.
So I don't have a party, not really. I align with the Democrats. This is where my career is, because I feel like I can have more influence and have more impact and get more done in the world toward the vision for what I would like to see, particularly on behalf of gains for my community. But if I'm strictly talking about my economic interest, I don't have a party. It is not in my economic interest to be a Democrat right now, nor is it in my economic interest to be a Republican, because, like, again, I'm not there yet to benefit from their policies, but also, if I'm being honest, really nothing the Democrats are saying really helps me either.
So, so what Kevin's trying to say is he's secretly a Republican.
Well, y'all found out a lot of was secretly Republicans this last election.
Well, two things. So one, you talk about the middle class, the working class.
Yep.
But it's also not just people in a factory, right? And,
there you go.
They need to understand
that too.
The diversity of it. We just met a young man today named Dre.
Yeah.
Right, who is doing great things in his own right, being an entrepreneur. But he's in the what would you say, tech, digital, film production space, right?
Space, really, yeah.
And he's upper middle class, But we don't consider that, right? We don't think about that.
Yes,
we don't.
And he's getting ready to send 2 kids to college. So ask him if he feels rich.
Right.
If he feels like it's good. I mean, he's working on a Sunday.
Right. He's from the Bronx.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Moved to Atlanta. As so many Northerners have done.
Helps with the cost.
Right?
It goes a little bit further, but even here, it don't go as far as it used to. Right. You used to could get a nice apartment, nice big old apartment in Atlanta for what, like $1,200-$1,300.
Yes.
Like you might have a couple bedrooms for $1,300 now. But now what does $1,300 get you?
13 get you it won't even get you it get you a studio. But it ain't in the heart of Atlanta. You may be ventured up north a little bit, right? Or closer to the Cobb County line, or the Cobb County line, or definitely Clayton County line. You go south, it's $1,300 a straight.
Yep.
Get your nice little crib, but you are 15, 20 minutes away from the city.
Yep.
You in College Park.
Yep.
So the working class, when you talk about the diversity in the working class, is also a type of jobs that weren't that weren't really considered back in 80s and 90s and early 2000s, right?
Correct.
They don't think about these small business owners who are entrepreneurs who are scratching and surviving, for the good times.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's one approach. And then when you talk about how the Democratic Party, as even the Republican Party, are trying to message to black men, this fight has actually, it hasn't been the last 4 years. It started with Obama. And the Republicans saw. Right?
Yeah.
Right after Obama's, 2 terms. That's when they started their recruiting. To get black men on their side. Because they knew black men really didn't have a home in the DNC.
Not really. Not that we feel like. I mean, not really. And it's something that the party will have to grapple with. And what I'm seeing right now, even in this race for the DNC chair, like I'm not really seeing what that is really coming through as a focal point. And so it gets back to one of the points we made earlier, which is that when you had these conversations before you get on these campaigns and stuff, you always talk to other black folks that are maybe involved or close to the effort to get an understanding of what's actually happening, because you have to always go in and sort of fight for those resources. And what I'm seeing and hearing right now, even in this DNC race, is that like we're gonna be back to the same stuff again, where you're gonna have to explain to them again. Like even the front runners for the chair are Midwestern white guys, and they're gonna have that same view of what the working class is, and so that means black folks are gonna have to fight again to try to get at the table, to try to get them to understand that you have to think more expansively if you want to win elections, and you have to understand that middle class and working class people are diverse,
Diverse.
and they don't just live in the blue wall states. They live in Georgia. They live in the South as well, and you just can't put everything on those states and expect to win elections.
Why do you think that campaigns take the South for granted, Southern politics for granted?
I think because not enough of the consulting class um, comes from the South and understands it. And a part of that is because campaigns in the South are not as lucrative as they are in other places. And so what that means is that you have fewer people with real national experience that are making these decisions. You have fewer people who understand the South, who do
Yeah.
races in the South, or who are like us, really kind of came up not just growing up here, but also doing campaigns. I started doing campaigns at 16.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's a big part of the reason why they take it for granted, because the consulting class doesn't understand it. Most of them aren't from here and just don't know.
Well, the consulting class, and then also, like you said, operatives.
Yep.
I think operatives are different now, right? Like sometimes you got operatives that did one campaign and think that they are the masters of all and know how to get things done. And it's cookie cutter, very cookie cutter. And I think we're also starting to see that on the national politics. They think that one thing worked. Oh, with Joe Biden, well, we did this during his race.
Yeah.
Well, it was COVID.
Yeah.
People outside now. We back outside. Right? And so you have to meet voters where they are.
Yeah.
And right now, many people aren't at the mailboxes.
No.
Right? They're
You
tired
gotta
of
get
text
in that
messages,
phone.
right?
You gotta get
You got a different
get
way.
on that screen.
Get on
Yeah.
that screen.
Yeah.
So I think
And podcasts.
and podcasts, right?
Yes.
And so, again, folks, this podcast was designed to try to, give a voice to Southern politics from two Southern gentlemen, right? Who are, again, mama's boys, but we are vets in the game. Kevin and I have combined over 40 years of expertise.
Yeah.
From City Hall to Capitol Hill to the White House,
Yep.
right? We've been there. We've sat in rooms, screaming at the top of our lungs. Not really screaming, because that's an angry black man, and we can't have that.
No, can't do that.
But we've been, debating back and forth about why we need to take this route instead of that route. Why we need to not do a barbershop event.
Yeah, or
And publicize it.
or why it's okay to go to a HBCU homecoming. Why the candidate can do that and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And these are conversations that still have to be had sometimes in these spaces. And you're right, it might not feel like it. Seems quick, but we've been a part of a lot and a lot of historic races, and a lot of that we'll cover as we kind of go through and have the conversation. But I think what roots us and what guides us is all of the stuff we talked about today. It is our upbringing.
Right, it is.
It is our HBCU experiences, those formative years for us, and it is being in the South and building these national careers.
So, I'm going to transition because we want to bring this to a close. When we talk about our careers, we're very passionate about it.
Yep.
We were very obsessed with the work that we did.
Yep.
We were relentless in some of the campaigns we worked on, most of the campaigns.
Yes.
We showed some resiliency, and we were, at times very fearless when it comes to standing up for what we believe in.
Yes.
Or taking that risk to do a tactic that people didn't hear. And that embodies something that we share, that we shared from the very first day we met, which is the Mamba Mentality.
That's right.
Those things: passion, obsessiveness, relentlessness, resiliency, fearless. Those were the pillars of the Mamba Mentality. And so today, is the 5 years now?
5 years.
The 5th year anniversary of the untimely passing of Kobe Bean Bryant, aka the Black Mamba.
Yeah.
And so Kevin reminded me of that when I scooped him. And before we close out every show, we want to, we want to talk about people that we think have embodied or, possess that Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
And so for you, I'll let
Yeah.
you go first.
So for me, it was the Right Reverend Marianne Edgar Bood, and I may be saying her last name wrong, but she was the bishop who confronted President Trump during the service and just spoke truth to power. And she was calm, she was unflappable, and against what seems like insurmountable odds,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to say this to the leader of the free world. She didn't care.
Right.
Just like
In front of everybody.
just like Cole. And you remember them years before, after Shaq, he's trying to climb his way back to win those final 2 championships. I mean, that team was looking a little rough He didn't really have all these players.
Right.
He didn't care, though. He beat the Celtics.
Right.
Beat them. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely props to her.
Mm-hmm.
We give you the Mamba Award.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, right, I got to give it to Georgia's native son,
Mm-hmm.
who passed away just recently, President Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy
right?
Earl Carter.
Jimmy Earl Carter.
That's right.
Who embodied, everything that Kobe stood for, right? He stood up and said the time when he won governor, he got on that stage at his inauguration, said the time for segregation is over.
Yeah.
It's over. And, I dare you to come after me, right? This is a man who had many careers and many lifetimes over.
Yeah.
From, being in the Navy,
engineer,
from being a farmer,
peanut farmer, small business,
state legislator,
school board member,
state legislator, governor, and then president. And then after president, he transitioned into humanitarian life.
Yes.
Right? And did great works, across the globe.
Yeah.
And so, and he did it with very few Secret Service members, right?
Yeah.
When he was, after he was president, right? Like, and I remember, having a couple of encounters with not just him, but also his wife, Rosalind.
Yep.
And so, I'm gonna give my mama to him.
Well deserved, and just like Kobe, Jimmy didn't really give a damn who he pissed off.
Right.
He was trying to get it done.
He wanted to smoke.
Yeah, he did.
So, Kev, I think this was a great first episode.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you, my brother, for
thank you.
Helping me do this, joining in together. Right? We talked about it. Thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. This concludes our first episode of Maroon's Bison Presents.
The
Southern Comfort Podcast. And for those who don't know, Maroon Bison is a merge of our 2 institutions.
That's right.
I went to Morehouse College. We are the Maroon Tigers.
And I went to Howard. We were the Howard Bison.
And so, this is Maroon Bison. And we appreciate you guys for listening. And see you on the next episode.
Yep.
Peace.
Peace.